Welcome to Thought Form Building and White Magic, Part 1.
I need to ask what number of class would you say this is?
10.
10?
This is 10th class.
And how many more to go?
Undetermined. Undetermined. There's the sense in which this could be the last, or it might just be the middle ground. You never know. So let's see. We won't start on the rules immediately today. We'll work with thought form building. And then we'll see how far we get with that. There's also an introduction to magic, White Lodge and Black Lodge, which is interesting. And then we'll get into the rules. But I'm also going to segue over into the White Magic book, where they amplify what is said in Cosmic Fire. I found myself a little guilty leaving it out, especially since he manages somehow to explain things in the White Magic book left very much unexplained in Cosmic Fire. So it's very helpful here, yes. Which ones? The Antikarana. Okay. I'm waiting till they come out with 64 gigs. This is a mere 32. Absolutely, and when I come, you'll hear this sound, Yeah. Well, let's see now. So Lynn would be like where? And Tara, she would be where too? Okay. And then I think we can turn off the light. We don't need the light now for this. The Lynn cometh. Okay.
Tara and Bendin.
Yeah, I think we hit on 804 just about. We don't want, 804. I'll make that. All right. Here we are in a beginning PCF 10. Gosh, that first time we were all together, I think it was raining, and it was in the leaky teepee. It was in the,
Supposed to rain again.
Is it so? Okay.
Yeah. 10% chance. 10%.
Well, when they tend to make those upswept roofs, they oftentimes have difficulty with them. So we were under your auspices there.
No kidding.
Yeah, that was 5 years ago. I know it feels like 10, but.
Yeah, only 5 years ago.
Only 5 years ago.
We started.
And there are a few survivors.
Well, there are a lot of people coming this time. To be a full group.
Yeah, is it so? Okay. Well, that's what we had in Escondido too. We had quite a full group, although they kind of chose their time, so they had a bit of a spotty exposure. But
a lot of that.
Yes, a lot of coming and going. Yeah. Just the kind of thing the master likes to see. Yeah. What's it called? The waxing and waning light, the flickering light. I guess he always likes to see that steady approach, right? Well, it would be nice to be able to produce that, wouldn't it? I intend to spend the next month inducing steady approach on the part of the unsuspecting.
Yeah.
Okay. Wireless is on.
It's on.
Wireless is on, apparently.
But there is a wireless from the neighbors that doesn't really reach well, and there is our own wireless and also.
I turned it on last night.
You're coming in, yeah. You're definitely loud and clear.
Okay, good.
And your name is default.
Yeah. Turn it on last night. That's good.
All right, so everybody, we're going to have a little meditation on the source of our thought forms. And all I have to do is find it. And meditation, right.
The source of the routine.
Right. So this is fairly free form, but what it will require that we ponder the kinds of thought forms we tend to make and their origins. So we'll spend a few. We have everybody that's going to be with us right now. Right. I kept on saying, where's Facha? Okay, well, so far so good.
I hope nobody's coming before 10. Somebody said it was come at 10.
Okay, well, we will certainly be finished with meditation by that time, and then we'll discuss it, and then we'll spend a few moments just settling in. And gradually disengaging our consciousness from the familiar, so that all energies in our personal field are quieted. And in our own way, we begin to tune in the soul field. We become aware of the world of spiritual light, spiritual love, spiritual will and power. We stand as if in the center of the egoic lotus, and we tune this world in. We're tuning in a world of relatedness, in which we come to realize there is no my soul or thy soul, only the one soul. And from this world we affirm the presence on this planet of the Masters of the Wisdom, and for the purposes of these courses we invoke the energy stream of the Master DK, we ask that the wisdom of this Master and gradually of the entire hierarchy slowly make its way into our consciousness. From the place of wisdom, from the place of soul light, with a mind held steady in the light, and as the observer, we will ask ourselves some questions. And the first question is, how do any one of us go about creating thought forms? Let's look at the thought form creation process. And see if we can identify how this happens in our energy system. of what does the thought form consist? Do we have words? Do we have images? Do we have other sounds? How does it arise within us? Now, the first thing we're going to do is to look at those thought forms which are inspired from or emanating from the etheric physical nature. Are there thought forms that arise from influences coming from the etheric physical nature? And do we find examples of these in our life? What prompts such thought forms? And what percentage of the contents of consciousness consists of such thought forms? In other words, when we are under the influence of the etheric, physical, elemental, what kinds of thought forms tend to arise? Do you think that there are more such thought forms within your thought aura than should be present? Or do you think it's all in balance? Is there a way for you, the center of consciousness, to be positive to, resistant to the arising of such thought forms? Now we will turn our attention to the formidable emotional vehicle, the strongest and most difficult to handle for the average aspirant or disciple. And think now about the kinds of thought forms which are inspired by or arise from your emotional nature. Try to think of concrete examples and the space taken up in your thought aura by thoughts inspired from this level. Try to think of concrete examples and how often these types of thought engage your consciousness. And this will probably have something to do with the degree of reactivity of your emotional vehicle. its relative strength within your field of consciousness. Can you think of a way of rendering your center of consciousness positive to these influences rather than negative? And this will tell us something about the degree to which kama manas is operative within our field of consciousness. Now let us switch the center of our attention and look for those thought forms which are not induced by physical states, which are not induced by emotional states, but seem to arise from stimulation within the mind itself and from the mental atmosphere that we contact. What concrete examples can we think of that may be operative within our thought form field? try clearly to identify such thought forms and the proportion of your mental field occupied by them. Now we enter another domain of thought. We try always to use our discrimination so we can be very sharp in discriminating one type of motivated thought from another. Can you detect in your mental field, in your field of consciousness, those thought forms which are particularly inspired by the soul and which seem to carry soul energy? The source of inspiration might still be the mental plane, but it would be the higher mental plane. Scan your thought field and see what are the thought forms inspired from that level. And repeat some of these thought forms to yourself if they are verbal, or focus on them if they are visual. when you think about your usual thought content across the whole range of your daily life, how often do you find yourself thinking or entertaining soul-inspired thought forms which carry the soul energy, the heart energy? Try to see clearly and in proportion the role of such thought forms amidst all the others. What is your default thought form making propensity? Is there a level to which it defaults? Now let's continue to use our discrimination in our inner sensitivity to the quality and origin of our customary thought forms, and see if we can detect within our thought field thoughts which arise from the spiritual triad or even the monad itself. Would we know the difference between these and soul-inspired thoughts? Can we discern this difference? Can we see what proportion, great or small, of such higher thoughts exists? So survey the mental field. Try to be honest, clear. Look for the proportion of different qualities of thought. The points of impulse for these thoughts. The kinds of other energies present when these thoughts are being thought. Instinctual thought, emotional, aspirational thought, intellectual thought, wise and loving thought, thought responsive to being and pure reality. Let's undertake a little experiment and align with the solar angel as much as you find you are able to do so. Now, under the energy stream and source which you are contacting, create the kinds of thought forms which you feel impelled to create by this stream and this source. See what is their quality, their nature. Now another little experiment. Utilize the visualized Antakarana as if you are touching the permanent atoms of the spiritual triad. And see if there is a quality of thought which arises when you begin to think in this stream and from this source. So you are simultaneously the creator of thought forms and the observer of their nature and quality. And there's our final effort. We imagine this Antakarana extending and touching the center of pure being, which for our purposes we consider the monad. We establish this alignment, we think and we observe the quality. Discrimination of 6 or 7 different qualities of thought and the inner resolution that the quality of thought will be selectively inspired from the higher sources. And that we will be, in the words of the Tibetan, positive to the lower sources and negative or receptive to the higher ones. And attentive now to the words and the thought embodied in the great invocation, we will, within the soul field, pronounce it, enunciate it, intone it, bring it forth. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men, and may Christ return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wheels of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. from the center which we call the race of man. Let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. So we have the observer of thoughts, which ultimately turns out to be the monad itself, in whatever level it may be manifested. And we have this need for keen discrimination and honesty about the quality of our thought life, which means we really have to stay alert. You know, you have to do everything you would do in normal living, but still be aware of the kinds of things that are passing through your mind, and also a readiness at each moment to create the quality of thought that is needed in the situation. So this is service through thought, which means, of course, being aligned with the stream that we want to be accessing instead of lapsing back into habitual thought. Because habitual thought is never at as high a level as we can access if we are deliberate. And one day, of course, our present deliberate access will become habitual, and we build in that way. So it's a very delicate process, really, and if we're getting into the whole white magical process as he presents it in the two books, it's very much about thought form building and making those thought forms real. But we have to, start right at the top. Okay. So I guess we could have some sharing regarding what kinds of thoughts we notice, whether we noticed certain types of thought stimulated from either the instinctual, the emotional, the intellectual, the love, or the truly spiritual will level, our sense of the condition of our thought apparatus and the proportion in our thought field of such thoughts, and the experience of what it's like to create thoughts under high alignment, and whether we can recognize the quality being expressed by these thoughts. So, any thoughts on this matter? Rendered into word? Any observations about yourself, and where you're usually working? So, the floor is open, Sheldon.
Well, I think one thing.
Very good, very good. That was a save. Very good.
One thing I've noticed is that I'm happier within when I am using thoughts that help others.
Mm-hmm.
I like to be creative in a way that I think others can be helped. And it's mental, and also it has a loving energy as well. Those are when I'm the happiest. And I feel more creative and more productive that way. When I'm using kamamanus, I'm not pleased with myself, and I don't feel good in my vehicles.
You mean kamamanasa?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And those arise from time to time. But basically, I think I'm more mental than comic. I just have a kind of a mental perspective on things, and sometimes perhaps too mental. But the physical etheric thought forms do come up because I have a 7th grade physical body, and I attune to that very easily. And so I do think about the etheric condition of the body and what needs to be done. So, I can notice all of those different things that you do in meditation within myself. And I feel more alive and more full of energy and more pleased with life, you might say, when I'm in the higher field.
Pleased with life.
Yes, pleased with life.
Sense of well-being. A shambolic quality, well-being.
Yeah.
I sometimes wonder if, of course I've got kind of an astrological bias, but I kind of wonder if we invoke the presence of a planet and its color and thought through it, visualizing, as if thinking through it. Like the kind of thoughts you've been talking about are somewhat Venus thoughts. They relate to the higher mental plane. They have a lot of love and magnetism in them. They have a lot of concern about the well-being of others. Whether we could intensify or augment the quality of these thoughts. I guess there's kind of maybe there's kind of a bell-shaped curve here for a lot of people. Maybe it's strictly although this is the Aryan civilization, so I think a lot of physical thoughts are with us. And maybe, since the Atlantean civilization is subsided for more advanced people, maybe there are not so many that are based on feeling states and mood states, although they are definitely there when we're passing through crisis. And we're no longer in the university where the mental level is it. Your intellectual training, that's it. If you bring in the other factors, it's considered irrelevant. We're in soul training. So we do want to generate these Venusian thoughts, which inevitably have some degree of heart activation accompanying the thought. Well, we have to kind of identify where we work and under what circumstances, and when we're with whom.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of just see, maybe our mental ray is involved in this to a degree, but also I think our chakric activation and the degree of soul alignment or antichorionic alignment. Were you able to sense a difference there in things so-called above the soul? Although, there's a glamour involved with that too. Everybody wants to be, beyond the soul, but, it's not really realistic. Yeah. Glenda? Oh, no.
Thank you. Well, this is a tough one to talk about because it's very powerful meditation for me, or reflective meditation.
Mm-hmm.
It started off and you said, so how thought forms get built, and I just thought, I think about the day, what day is Mercury? Mercury day, it's 11, Scorpio, energy's kind of falling in for purification, discipleship, what's going on in the world, but I have some intentions, and then I kind of, out of those are born thoughts, so I kind of started that way, simple practice. And then you asked, kind of what comes up in the, I didn't get the first point, you said, what comes up in the affairs? So I thought, health, vitality, flow, and it took me to a couple of rounds about what you're saying, what comes up from there, not what comes down up there.
Yeah, what comes together. Love it.
So I feel a little, I'm being embarrassed, I'm not sure. But what I can say is that I'm quite humbled, actually. I think about these matters. What happens for me, I think, is that I do think about it from a soul perspective. There's just I can't, I look at my body, and it's a third of the body, so it's all easier. But if things are not going right, they're rash. So what do I do with that? Well, I imagine it clean and clear. And I take some actions, cream, maybe something from the doctor, but that's it. I don't, that's it.
Don't dwell.
No, move on. Thoughts that come up, on the emotions that come up, and I can be quite reactive to certain things. Fox News. I could really, this is I could really, it's just stupidity that we see in the healthcare base or things like that. But I don't dwell. I said it right. In my mind, I just say, well, wait a minute, I said it right, and then move on. I don't dwell. It's just like something comes in to write the thought. It's just a movie that kind of ended in a dumb way. I thought, that's the wrong script.
Said it right.
I changed it around. So it was kind of automatic. It goes with what you were saying, Linda. It's to make me feel inside what I know is to be true. There is a flow of life through me. I know what it feels like. I know it. And I know it deeply. I felt it most of my life. It gets stronger. So why not be in that all the time? So what I do is I change things.
Mm-hmm.
So thoughts that come up, especially negative thinking, I reverse it.
Right.
I stop it, reverse. Right. I ask myself, is this something I thought I want to follow? The answer is no. It doesn't take long. It takes a matter of seconds. So just change it around. Okay, what do I want to think about? So then we talk about soul, and I thought, well, soul, and then you asked about the triad, and I thought, okay, now there's a distinction here. Because for me, soul has to do with a kind of sense of it's like being held in the hands of the solar angel. This is a very real experience for me. It's like, so meditation, solar angel, it's like you breathe and you feel life flowing through you, right? Mm-hmm. There's an upward flow, there's a downward flow, and you feel held. Well, that's like the solar angel. For me, that's the solar. That's a concrete expression of it. So what happens here is these little practices are what the soul's all about. They're practices of gratitude, which are just the natural thing one does. Appreciation, which is kind of simple. looking for beauty, letting go of things real quickly, setting things right. That's kind of soul.
Mm-hmm.
So let me go on to try it. I thought, because I wrote down, when we talked about soul, I wrote down one people, one planet. I mean, these sound like stuff you read in the books. I mean, this is real. When I think about where we got to go on the planet, it's just obvious. Not great detail, but I mean, or it's the one humanity, or it's right human relationships. It's a series of principles which seem to be. Okay, so then one thinks from those. I still see a movie by, Michael Moore, Capitalism. Think through, what would, if we got rid of Wall Street capitalism, push it out, and we brought in a much fuller thing. This is what my mind is filled up with. How would you feel? What would it look like? What would that look like for the benefit of all people on the planet? You see folks working in terror work, in Africa, having the kind of material things they need. And this is what interests me. Mm-hmm. So I think these thoughts, I feel really quite good. I can't do much about it, so I feel pretty good.
Are you saying that those are coming from the soul level or from the triad level?
I don't know.
Because principles is an interesting word.
I think it's coming from the triad down. Mm-hmm. The soul for me is much more of a I feel protected. I feel like I'm encased in something which is like a better etheric body than I've got right now. Mm-hmm. That's what the soul is to me. Mm-hmm. So it does a lot of filtering and lifting of things that kind of go on any level. So I just don't experience it very much. I just don't. I just move forward, move on. And the basic quality is either somewhat joyful, sometimes, a fair amount. But it's kind of moving, it seems kind of Pollyannish as I speak it, so that's why I feel a little embarrassed about saying this. But I mean, my mother would say, "You live in a strange world, my son." And I'm in touch.
We're
actually now. It's been 15 years. So
we'll second that, shall we?
But what I'm convinced of now, that I wasn't so much then, was that this way of viewing possibilities as actualities coming forward, as the future coming at us, is very real. And we have all kinds of evidence on the physical plane of the seeds of this. So I spent my time virtually there. That's what's fun for me. So I would say, Robert, that's kind of an outcome.
I'm really impressed by two things. Creative change. I'm impressed by what can happen when the creativity of the third ray is applied under the influence of the second ray. Because this whole idea of what does it mean to be creative, as you describe what you do with experience, it's really creative and recreative.
Recreative.
It's both. And I'm impressed also by what it means to say, I come forth and from the plane of mind, I rule the pattern of circumstances. You see, I don't just accept them. There's a couple of things operating there. It seems to be operating now at quite a reliable level.
What came to me, Michael, what the soul was, that whole phrase, let the soul control the outer form and life and all of that.
Yes.
I thought, oh my gosh, that's kind of what I'm talking about here.
Exactly.
It may not be by any means complete, but it's kind of, it's present. There's no question about it. So looking through that particular lens, it clearly is yellow. It is a brighter lens. I don't like dark things. It is a brighter sunshine world. And it's
it is said that the initiate on the second ray must achieve positivity. In the Antikarana things, it tells us what all of us as initiates must achieve, and that kind of positive recreativity is operative. I can see that. I'll have to try that. I sometimes tend to leave movies where they are and fret about it. Alrighty. All right. Thank you, Sheldon. Other impressions? Discriminations, impressions?
Well, I've been doing a lot of writing, and so I'm setting this experience within that context. Writing about women in the world, women peacemakers. And from the etheric, physical, are not alone anymore. I'm part of it. struggling, pained part of life, filled with a lot of courage and vitality. But it's painful, and I deliberately choose to go there. I want to see, I want to know, I want to experience what they feel. I don't want to turn a blind eye. So it's not easy. And I've chosen, my fourth grade mind, to express this in poetry. I'm writing a libretto. So when the soul comes in, we get a breath of fresh air and an opportunity to deeply breathe in hope. But I think I've mentioned to you before, I definitely walk that path between despair and hope every day. And that's probably what needs to be said, because that's what we are experiencing. When it comes to thinking in a different way, trying to connect with the triadic level, I can't try. I just have to wait. And then every once in a while, a little flash comes, and I put that in, and it's like a gem. It makes everything come together. It's a cohesive force. That's why writing is so painful, because you can't make it happen. You have to wait and wait. And finally that little gem comes in. Thank you for that. But it's noticeable, and everybody, that was really good. Wasn't me, but at least, I got it in there. This despair hope thing, I think it's very real for many of us. I mean, it's part of Erickson's cycle, crisis of old age and all that. But I think we have to admit it's true for many of us and embrace it, which is part of maturation process. Like Sheldon, I have a very, very body, so I'm pretty tough. I can take a lot, but one does have to temper that. In the overall picture of it, the Antakarana experience for me is just like the soul contact. It's like turning on a spigot, and it's like a refreshing wash. Thank goodness that's available from time to time. And with our meditation, we build that into our lives on a daily basis. Well, who knows what will happen.
Right.
But I find that, the writing process for me has been very useful in watching. I'm able to watch it play out, and I think I can learn from my own experience as a writer how to integrate not only soul, but patience.
It's a creative time for you, isn't it? I mean, this is really getting more and more so. Amazing.
People have approached me, please do this, please write for this, and so I said yes. Now I'm in the
librettist. I mean, that must be music is coming.
I bring it to the it's called A World of Women.
Okay. It's going to be a musical or a musical.
It's with some beautiful music.
Yes.
Not me, I don't know.
Well, you're providing the...
I provide the words.
What is your writing side?
Pardon?
What is your writing side?
I write poetry. Leo, but my progressed ascendant now is Libra.
Okay, did you just come in to that?
I was been there for a little while.
Fairly recently.
But I really feel that shift. Oh,
okay.
yes. That's huge.
Looking forward to it another 40 years.
It's huge. Very, very kind of.
Excellent. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, on one plane or another.
It's that point, with the despair hope, right?
No, I do really understand, and how the fourth ray, second ray has to deal with that. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for those.
Michael, where is your fourth ray?
In me.
Oh, yes. Thank you all.
I know you have a fourth ray in your foot.
Yeah, wait, I'll check. It should be in the bag. Probably I've been on the fourth ray personality a long time. probably. And I think, no matter what it might be changing into, the divine fanatic, how's that? Or not so divine fanatic, anyway, fanatic. I think that for a number of lives I've been on the fourth ray, developing the art side. So I kind of look at that as my substantial personality ray. And so many things I have to overcome are on that line, that and the third ray. Well, we have such a mixture of things we have to overcome in Scorpio. All of our rays contribute to those things, Yeah, okay. So thank you for that. Yeah.
I enjoy listening what you were saying. I think in my process, I think I'm more mentally polarized than I was for sure, 5-10 years ago. So there is a lot of actually concrete mind going on in my day. And sometimes it's, focused to physical needs, emotional needs, but many times it's just focusing in other things that have to do more with the mental plane. And I was trying to, think more, how do I access to abstract thinking? And I think it's really by just developing the concrete mind and keeping the alignment that those inspirational thoughts come. They come when, as you mentioned, when they want to, not when I want them to come. But I can feel how they, sometimes there is a touch of something that is not what I already had in mind, and so I know that it's coming, and of course it's more universal or more inclusive or more loving, and it just makes a lot of sense. So I can feel that's the touch of intuition. And often in my experience, it doesn't happen so much during meditation per se, but in other moments. And sometimes for me during meditation it's more like I am in the alignment, and my perception is more like an energetic download of light or kind of the sense of something that I feel is coming down in the etheric field, but I haven't translated it yet. And it doesn't normally happen in that moment so much for me, but it might happen later on that I have insights that I wasn't expecting to have, or thoughts that I said, well, that's not something I already knew. So then I kind of track that they come from that place.
I like this phrase you used, it's not what I already have in mind. I think that's a really important phrase, and it kind of reminds me of Master D.K.'s fifth meditation, where he sets up the intuitive process and asks you to write down the very first word that comes to your mind. He sets up the whole Adhyarana and then asks you to, no matter what it is, to take it in. It might be something that you did already have in mind, but it might not be. It might be that new thing, Intuition is always about the new, as far as I can understand.
In relation to that, what we already have in mind, somewhere along the process of the meditation, I began thinking about not only the source of our thought forms, but the thought form making mechanism itself, and how that contributes to the actual structure of the thought form, and how often we use whatever material we have lying around on the mental plane to cobble together into some kind of similitude of what it is that has entered our mind, and depending on the material that we have, we can end up with a thought that's very useful or can be very distorted. Sheldon was mentioning the health care debate, which is such a wonderful example of muddled thinking. And the fact that there are many thought forms out there that have been carefully placed there, and an enormous amount of energy has gone into maintaining them, and billions of dollars, literally. So that when we as humanity think about certain issues, we have readily available to us these pre-constructed building blocks, and depending on the blocks we use, we can end up with a very distorted thought form of whatever the issue is. So I was thinking somewhat about the importance of thinking, and that's the essence of education is how do we think? How do we create? How do we know what truth is? And if we were to, I think that's one of the services we have is to use a powerful and clear thought form building mechanism to recreate, as Sheldon was saying, some of these thought forms that are out there to give a better, so that humanity has a better chance at arriving at truth. One example, just because it's so extreme in my mind, is the idea that the United States has the greatest healthcare system in the world. I mean, there's a thought form that's out there. It's reinforced all the time. We hear it all the time. But the amazing thing is, forget about the fact. If you look at it objectively, you'll find it's very low. It's one of the worst in the developed world, and it's the most expensive. But what's even more amazing is that the number one cause of death in the United States is medicine.
Yeah.
Far beyond heart disease, cancer, it's our medical system, and here we're fighting to try and preserve it because of these thought forms that are out there.
It kind of reminds me this idea of cobbling things together, sort of like the Frankenstein monster. Out of all the parts and pieces that are lying around, you put something together that's supposed to be a living being, So it seems to me that the creative state of mind, kind of a Uranian, maybe even fourth-rate state of mind, where you can fluidly change things and adapt them to the stream that's coming in, is so important. You don't want to just have to grab a chunk and put it together. There's got to be some fusing, blending, melting, reshaping process in the thought for people who are mentally alive. Not just accessing what has been thought. Whole stuff, So somehow we have to be, as we are creating thought, always alive to the newness of the moment, where a reworked thought substance can be used to link it appropriately with the quality of the stream. That really requires a lot of alertness, Yes.
Mind of light, we call it.
Mind of life, mind held steady in the light, all these things. The feeding stream is really making the material appropriate, or helping it become appropriate.
I just want to put one other thought that the group feels that occurred in the meditation. You were asking about higher up, and I was thinking, so what? I'm not sure if it's a monad or sounds grandiose, but I try to think like Sada Kumar. So what's he looking at there? What's he thinking about it? He looks at his brother and sister planets, and says, okay, we're better ways to go yet. But he at least has in mind the vibration for this planet. It's a sound of vibration. This goes back to the point of how do we sort through the thought forms. If you think about some of these ideas that are out there, and the vibratory quality of them, some of them are just weak, And if you have any sense in yourself of what seems the same for the whole planet, including the stones, you get a sense of how they come alive. Or you just read Chardin, having done Mass in the desert. I mean, these folks, if you have a feeling for that, we can test these thought forms to see which ones have vibratory sanctity to them. And those are the ones we want to work with.
That's a good term. Vibratory sanctity.
It's a sound, it's a vibration. That's at least what partly his monads or maybe Kumar has in mind for the planet. That's what he's in mind.
I hear
at least that.
I hear it's colorful.
Could be.
Sounds good too.
Sounds good. Could be beautiful.
Could be beautiful too. Okay, good thoughts. Coming from where? From more than the intellect, would you say?
Yes.
So it seems. Okay, who else? Who else would like to report a little something on the process? What was detected? What was seen?
I'll just say that, at the beginning it was more of a mechanical sort of thing, looking at the mechanics of things, like you mentioned a moment ago.
Yeah.
And so I was looking closely at that and realized that certain thoughts for me are associated, when I look at them carefully, with color. And then of course, I can realize what center is being affected. And the trick, of course, is the awareness. Trying to be aware, having some sort of marker, I guess, if you will, mental marker that pops up for me when thoughts are going on. And what is this? Where's it coming from? And if I start looking at it, I do detect color and begin to realize where it's happening within my system. And I guess that has to do, like you said, Michael, with planets. I did notice that when we got to the mental field, the yellow color was really strong. But and so I realized that there's a lot of thoughts that I create myself, and they're created at a certain level. And it seems to me that creative thought goes all the way up to the soul. That even because I identify it as a soul more than I do, I think, any other way, not that I particularly act that way all the time, but that's how I identify. And so I think a lot of thought is created from that point downward. And my impression was that everything else is not really created so much actively, but as this process everybody else has been talking about, it's sort of it's more of an impression from a higher level. And so it's real simple for me to know which is which, because one of them is colored, and I noticed that the lower the vibratory level, the darker the color. And the higher I'm able to register, or the higher thoughts I'm able to register are clearer and clearer. And then when I know I connected with something beyond the soul level, it reminds me of a statement made by this fellow over in Santa Barbara who won the Nobel Prize for Physics. And I got invited to go over there to his little get-together. And he and I were talking, and we got to talking about art and beauty and this and the other. And he said, it's really amazing you bring that up, because you see all these pictures around here. We've realized that they're very closely connected. And he said, when we're working with equations, we know when we're on the right track. Because if it's beautiful, if it's melodic, or like a beautiful painting, in our eyes, when we see it, we know it's coming from beyond ourselves. When it's ugly and jumbled, we know we've got to get rid of it. Throw it away and do something else. And so that reminds me really of the difference in thought and impression. And so many times impression is really beautiful, and you feel so connected with humanity and all the beautiful things in life and beyond. And so you're on the right track. And you're aware enough to register that kind of quality. You're in the right spot.
Sounds like you've got a good indicator going. It sounds like your color indicator is right in line with what has been given in the teaching. If it works for you, then that's really important. Somehow the fourth ray is coming into this discussion, this major ray of color and its qualities and the ray of resonance and beauty. So.
Yeah. And I guess that fourth ray of seeing things both ways,
Yeah.
In trying to really use discrimination, it has a lot to do with what you do with thought.
Exactly. And that fourth level of the mental plane is the discriminating point. Sophie, thanks for sharing that perspective. Yes. Okay. Yes.
Well, as probably a number of people in this room might know, we've been going through an amazing process in our life. What I can only describe as probably in simple terms of a death process, a death and powerful purification elimination process. And it's hard when you're going through it, but it is so clean. It is so liberating. Our home environment right now, we have our home for sale, and our home environment right now is becoming, this last year, and I would say accelerated the last 6 months, and accelerated the last 4, and even more the last 1, we have been purging and letting go and letting go. And there's so much more to do because there's so many files. We have an office, and we're trying to let go of things and just keep the essentials. So our home is like we got rid of stuff. And there is a purity and a resonance and a simplicity in the home that is so different to be inside of. The things aren't there to drag the attention on the aura. And I become exceedingly sensitive as a result. And so when I come into an environment that is very different, like for example, we're staying in a room that has things in it. I mean, just things and things and things, and I can just feel them. And I couldn't sleep last night because all these things are hanging on my aura. And these scents in the room. In fact, there was one scent, and I'm sniffing around like, where is this? It's making me nauseous. And I find the source of it. And it's this bottle of synthetic perfume or something. I don't know. And it has these sticks sticking out of it, so it's drawing this stuff out. And I found it. I go, I'm going to bring this out of the room. And I pick it up by the top, and it drops on the floor. And it spills on the carpet. It spills in my pants. It spills on into my skin. And I just felt awful. And all inside this room that had, so I'm opening all of them. And managed to get, blot it all up and managed to lift it off. But it got in my aura. So here I am in this meditation, and I'm smelling it, and my lungs, I can feel my lungs are burning. It's coming off my skin. And so, here's this huge dichotomy of having my environment become so pristine and clear and purified, and now being in a room that is just filled with stuff. So here, so when you say go into the etheric, the physical etheric, see,
Yeah, but you talk about that already.
I get lost in that.
And what to do? What to do? I mean, you can get, I don't know, maybe it's oversensitive over something, but I'm thinking of sleeping in my car tonight.
You can sleep here if you want to.
Yeah.
Take your room.
So then we move into the astral, and that is really also interesting, because as I was going through this process of releasing things, and this is where I think the soul ray and the personality ray come into play. we get all these magazines, and we're just trying to purge them, get rid of them. And, oh man, it's just all these trees that are being killed from magazines, catalogs. So here is this one that came in, a stellar catalog, these gemstones. And because I'm a 7th grade personality, I have this, I would say, maybe vulnerability to gemstones. You know, positive as well as negative. So most of the stuff I just throw away. And this one I go, I go, well, maybe I'll keep it. Maybe I'll just have a look. And so I did. I just started paging through this. And then I paged through it some more. And all of a sudden, I'm inside of this magazine. And I'm inside of these gems. And they are drawing me. And I am completely wanting this. Wanting that. And the gift of wanting these gemstones. It was a real wow. And this was part of my process of purification as well, because interestingly enough, while I like these things, you know, I rarely wear them. They're in, and I look at them more from the perspective of how can I use them magically. If I put a necklace on, how can I use it in a resonant way? And I just attended this 3-day, 4-day retreat, Qigong retreat, where talk about empowering vitality in the physical system. It's very simple. It's called Amani Qigong. I won't go into it, but it's very simple, powerful. 800-year lineage of Qigong. And they believe in these empowered objects like jade, where they brought them up the mountain. A person, the jade is selected specifically by this master. It's brought up by the mountain to a main mountain, selected by a person who will carry it up. And then for 49 days, that master and nuns and monks will pray for 49 days over these particular gems. And so you can imagine the Devic life that is being attached, magically attached to these particular stones, all for the purpose of using them in healing, so that they will neutralize and attract negative energies from the body, so they'll literally go there. So here I'm looking at, okay, use of gemstones, wanting, observing, aware of what's still in my system as I'm going through this whole purification process in this last year. So this was, again, revealing. Oh, and one other thing, when I was looking at the gemstone, I could feel the chakra that gets activated. It's the sacral center, for me anyway. Between the base and the sacral, these two centers got activated. So it's interesting to see, what centers either, how do we use them consciously or how do we purify them? And then the mental, so how do I use the mind? And I find that the majority of my thinking is in wanting to put together all these many years of study and writing notes, and I flip through my diaries and I see these amazing thoughts that have been put down. And so it keeps coming to me, mystery school, an ancient wisdom mystery school, or to put all this together, and this continually comes. So I'm paying attention now and what wants to come out of that. And then moving higher, then somewhere in between the thought and soul is just what Sheldon was saying, is how we look at how do we create a service with what we attend to, because we know that every thought is a thing that gets empowered. So what you think about grows. And so what in the majority in our mind grows. So this too has been a tremendous purification process, is eliminating those thoughts that I don't want to grow and instilling those that I do want to grow. So it's been work. It's been a conscious working process. And so when we hear things on a global scale about healthcare or this economic debacle,
that's going on and how it actually occurs because of selfish thinking by the few and not for the whole, and how it's been completely distorted and turned upside down, and then what's happening to us, and we're victims of it in a way. So how do we not become victims? So the whole question of this, what do we in a very consciously think about and want to contribute and choose that's going to be different in the future, that will be an example of how it should be, and not how it creates victims for whole masses of people. And then the triad claim is, what came to me was simply presence and being, and the presencing of well-being. Michael, you said that well-being is a Shambhala thought. I had never thought about that. But that's been a constant invocation, is well-being for all. And so there's also this 4-day thing that I went to is well-being for all sentient life, is what the Buddhists say, well-being for all sentient life. So it's coming from the Shambhalic plane, and I didn't really put all that together. But what the beauty of this teaching is that there is this differentiation, whereas with the Tibetan Buddhists and the Qigong, there's this very simple, there's the physical, there's humanity, and there is heaven. There's heaven and earth and there's humanity. And so the heaven is this non-limitless, non-dual state. And what DK offers is all of this beautiful differentiation where we can consciously, as a cultist, be much more constructive with the worlds we want to create. So I think I would probably conclude with that.
It says here, then the attractive power of the hierarchy and of the ashrams and of the masters supersedes lower attractions and the lesser focal points of interest. When these, in their turn, assume their rightful place in consciousness, then the dynamic pull of Shambhala can be felt entirely unrelated to form or forms to a group or groups. Only a group sense of well-being, with a capital B, esoterically understood, is realized, for it is comprehended as the will to good. No forms can then hold, no group or ashram can then confine the consciousness of the initiate, and all differences of every kind disappear. This is a preamble to Rule 9. And there may be another place where that is discussed.
I wonder if that's what's going on right now within humanity. There's a couple of things that you said really I could relate to about just getting rid of stuff, in the life, and we just went through that process ourselves. And I thought, it's kind of like what happens when people know they're dying. They get rid of all the non-essential stuff out of their mind, and they focus so much on what is, And, with all of this financial crisis, so to speak, and what people are going through all over the world as a result of it, you got to wonder if it's not about that, about getting rid of all this non-essential stuff and the things that we think we have to have and are so important. We just moved from a house that was over 4,000 square feet, an acre of grounds and pools and all kinds of stuff, beautiful, beautiful place, to a 55 square foot box. And that's what, unless we're at our house in Mexico, that's what we're living in. And you know what?
It's a trailer.
It's fun.
It's fun.
We're the box people now.
We call it the box.
Yeah. So, but what is amazing about it is that in that experience you realize how little you need. And really, as you said, how freeing it is when you can get rid of it. And so, you think about that on a grander scale about humanity and this whole thought form that humanity has built around this planet. And you wonder if maybe people are beginning to get it, that if you get off the grid, so to speak, like we were talking about last night, this financial grid, this thing that they have built for you to get into their game, and the moment you get into it, you lose. It's absolutely impossible for you to win at that game. And so maybe people are beginning to see, hey, we don't really need it. Somebody talked about I think it was you, Wall Street and, this whole capitalistic thing that is created out of thought form. That's all it is. It's nothing more than that. And that's why it's so emotionally driven. Absolutely. And so what's its point, really? Yeah, exactly. When you think about that, it has no point. It doesn't create anything other than emotional highs and lows. And then money is attached to that.
Yeah, and theft.
Yeah.
That is just great theft. Helena, in your chart, I haven't even noticed how full it is, but there's huge Uranus activity, and it's been going on for a long time. As a matter of fact, you're in at the moment a stationary period of 4 months with Uranus exactly on your progressed sun, to the degree. And then in this period, Uranus is opposite, transiting Uranus is opposite your directed Uranus. So the change of pattern is very prominent and, inescapable, and according, it's an archetypal time. What is the archetype that's trying to get through here, for all of us? And of course, the archetype can't get through in the clutter, can it? We learn about that. So Pluto gets rid of the clutter, and Uranus establishes a new power. Well, we have Mara and Diane and Tria, so we should forge ahead. Yes.
I'll be very brief, and this is a great segue to what I want to say, this whole concept of purging, and put it all together here. My studies with you and with Lynn and Tara over the last 8 years have enabled me to install a wetware program up here.
Okay.
Busting. And it requires, that you get up to that atomic level from what I've been reading, and really, really, you have to be very discriminatory with your thoughts. Okay, and I'm constantly hearing myself either verbally or non-verbally saying words like "stop,"
Yeah, right.
and I'm, constantly shutting off the good thoughts of my life and those good times, and I gotta shut those off. Can't go there. And there's the thoughts of the bad times that I wish went differently, or I wish I could tell somebody off and tell them now what I think. Okay. Upon reflection, I can really hand it down right now. And I've gone through all those, and they really, really pull you down, those kinds of thoughts. And now I've stopped. Okay, within a nanosecond or two, I can stop that. And so now all these mundane thoughts and emotionally based things. I've learned that the emotional plane, it does not exist. It's simply an artifact of soul within matter. It has to exist, I guess. And it really means not a lot. And so cutting off thoughts leaves you with space. And that space, I find myself thinking a thought that I don't cut off. Okay? And that thought is that mystery school. And I'm constantly standing in the shower teaching Jesus' wisdom teaching in the shower. The great part is in the last 2 weeks I've introduced 2 people to a concept of Alice A. Bailey, and done it in a way I think it might stick, And I did it I've engaged everyone. I engage everyone on the next step up. I would say a word and see if they wake up.
Okay.
And if they do, continue. If they don't, we talk about the weather. And then silence. Very, very little can be said if they don't wake up. And so this whole concept of purging, I'm actually going through a move right now where I have to move from my studio, which is filled with stuff, just books, magazines, articles, technical things, outdated technical books. And you know, this purging is actually, it allows you space to breathe. And then you say, what is the next step? Okay, and the next step is to, for my karma, is to try to get young people to wake up earlier so they don't get caught up in their own thought forms. And you know, thought forms lead to experience, and the experience leads to emotion, and then you drown in the sea of emotion, and then you can't be a magician. You can't think properly, and you can't be creative properly when you're just upset about these people and the healthcare system and fixed news and so much to be upset about. I started to get upset last night. I don't watch TV ever. Okay, so I get a chance to Fox News. How dare they say that? You know, and I love it. It's great. And I'm so glad that I don't dwell there all the time, and I know people who just can't think about anything else. And thought form control allows you the space to have the soul come down. And what is that to me? To me, I'm trying to take this teaching and transmuting it into a younger audience that maybe I can get them to wake up and quiet themselves so that they can hear themselves, hear their own soul speak through. And that's the only thing that I seemingly want to do, which is dangerous to a personality, because the personality requires an income and you know, the physical plane requires income, food, and nourishment, etc.
Well, you know, stop, and then the Sheldon's piece there was substitute, stop, substitute. And then, you know, because you sometimes have to reorient thoughts that are already there and recreate them, but then the whole idea of space and reception is so important. It allows for the contemplative act. We let's keep moving now because we're a little bit over the time. Diane?
Okay, here I go. I've had an amazing opportunity in this lifetime to learn a great deal about the thought processes. Mediumistically, in terms of channeling stuff. In other words, being open to receive, and that's really what channeling is. All of the mediumistic frou-frou aside, that's really what it's all about. And so I got to experience those kinds of things, and moments when I would be waking up in the morning, and I like to call them hypnopompic states, where I would have these impressions come in. And the impressions would come up with these really enigmatic statements. And some of them were nonsense, and some of them were not as nonsense as I thought initially, and they progressively kind of got less nonsensical. And one of them was a thing in which I wound up writing an essay, and the phrase was, the interruption of immaturity. No one is certain what it means. And so I had to think about this huge concept. You know, this was kind of like totally outside of anything that I'd ever thought about before. And I'm sure I went in the direction at the time of, thinking, okay, that's an interruption of your immaturity, and so I was looking at that, and maybe looking at it in terms of some planetary stuff, because I think I'd done some reading in Bailey by then. And I'm just realizing now that it actually applied directly into my life, because I went through a kind of death process in my life. disrupted my connections to the rest of humanity, one's ordinary connections. And so this opened the door for all kinds of fresh impressions and new ideas and new experiences that are not in the ordinary flow of things. So the traumatic event that disrupted me literally stopped my thoughts from making it through from my space into somebody else's space, so that there could be any kind of a resonance between us. So when I needed something, a new job, for instance, I would go out for the interviews, and I could make a good presentation because I used to work for the state employment service. And I had a good interview because we were sitting field to field. Our fields were overlapping, and so we could see and talk to each other. But when I went away, there was nothing that held us together. And so all of my friends disappeared, moved away, out of state, and I'm going, So I was beginning to see that something was going on, and so I began to become finally aware of this network that exists. My realization is that that network is essential to carry thoughts amongst ourselves as human beings. And I finally found the references in our literature. Okay, a few things in decay, and I haven't been able to go through all of his works, but there was more succinct stuff in the Cedar Grant's works, especially in the nature of the soul, that actually addressed this idea directly, that there is a body of humanity and it's etheric. Okay, and so my experience was that just as the personal etheric body can be damaged, so can the body of humanity, i.e. the connections between us. And I think that has a lot to do with post-traumatic stress disorder that's created by war, abuse, and so forth and so on. So I've been learning a lot about that, but the thing that happened for me was that my thoughts and wishes could no longer be received properly or remembered. And so my sense is if I'd been completely dissociated from this web, I would be dead. I had enough to keep me alive and to bring me sufficient money to just sort of barely get along. But what happened because of that was I developed a second set of thought forms based on that experience. I had certain experiences when I was born that I developed impressions about what the world was like and how one acted in the world, okay, physical, etheric, that added the emotional stuff. But then none of those were getting out properly except in a very few cases. And so there was this development of frustration because I could no longer interact as I was used to in the world. So a second set of thought forms got built up around that. Okay. Now, but because of my intention was, I'm going to master this. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to find the healing process. So the healing process has begun. And so it's been working since about 2007, where it was clear certain events were taking place, and then each year another layer is added to it. So this has been my year of regaining longer communications in the larger community. And but now there's a creative process that I'm waiting for, which has kind of been waiting in the wings, where I'm going to get to do some writing and get to put the information out there that I have the time. But just amazing. I mean, what an opportunity. I mean, to have so many. The other thing that happened because of this, okay, it's like being in a cave. Okay, Buddhist monks go and they sit in caves for 12 years, and they have a system of their spiritual system where the community supports them, and somebody comes up and brings them food every day so that they can meditate. So it was kind of like a process of being isolated so that I wasn't also getting stuff as much from other people. So I had a kind of isolation that allowed a vertical work and an intensification of that. So I guess such interesting things. Like one of these things that came through in a dream many years ago was 2 words: gravity photography. I'm like, huh? And so I wrote about it. And now I was led to remember that particular dream and that particular phrase just before this conference.
Well, it sounds like,
if you think about it, if you think about impressions coming from the soul, okay, the gravity of the lower fields is what we are setting up to attract that was coming in from the higher. So it's really a kind of gravity photography of a thought form coming down into.
yes, that's an interesting way of thinking of it.
So that's kind of like a new perspective on that. And
I think we probably have to move on now.
I
know we have our life stories here, and they're very interesting, and but we've been here 2 hours and 15 minutes, so I need to have you speak.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
One can understand because this whole thinking is so important for us. But for me, it was about eyes, color, light, serpents, the statue of salt, and before I start, I have to say about this Pluto in Capricorn, what you have been talking about getting rid of. If you think about the worm before it goes into cocoon, it has all the things in the nature, all plants, everything, and then it goes into this death process of cocoon where it gets rid of. So it is going on, as you were saying, it is going on in the humanity. In our psyche that is going on. And that's why we have to get rid of things. So that was sidetracked of what you have been talking. But I got so interested the first time, a kind of experience of that, how the lower serpent comes out from the ajna. And the higher serpent from the monad anchoring in the center of the head, and the lower serpent in the ajna. So it was the dynamics between these 2 points, the center of the head and the ajna. And when the lower serpent, which is related to the past, how we have been evolving, when we come to this 4th plane of discrimination, there appears some kind of light. And Lynn was saying that the mind in the light. So there's something about this light which appears. So it is the evolution which has been connected already to life in the matter. And it has its own huge power. And that was coloring the devas. So immediately there, the higher evolutionary states of the personality colors still the devas. And you were talking about the colors. And that is the point where we have the 2 ways to go. If we turn, it's a 1 split second our heads towards the past, we are the salt statues. And there the thought form is built. So that's why we have these statues all around, the salt statues, which are having their own weight and life. But then how to have this healing process, what you were talking, is how the lower one in us, the serpent, is actually acting between the center of the head. And I felt how the solar angel was sitting in the center of my head. The monadic influence was coming all the time with this archetypal images, and they, if that linking is active and that is flowing, then it is affecting to those thought statues the way that they start to be implemented according to the plan and according to the higher pattern as the archetypes are. But it was very vivid seeing this whole structure in the head, how that is related to how the thoughts appears and how it descends into the thought form. How to be in that living, fresh area of monadic life, which how the higher serpent works. So that was basically it. It was really, really interesting. I hope I was able to explain or tell it. But
yes.
It was, and the eyes were appearing in the sentence. This was it's like the consciousness when it is anchored somewhere. That is what we see, and according to that we react.
Okay. Okay, friends. We've had a long one this morning. And now we will take a little break and get into DK's view of thought form building, provided our chord comes along. And if not, we'll just work with the books. Okay? We are missing a chord, yes, but if Lynn will just something with the machine. Okay, let's take our break. Thank you.